This week, we feature a return guest, a professional psychic with close to 50 years of experience. He is internationally known and has worked with people in over 30 different countries. Author of Knock in the Attic, True Ghost Stories, and other spine chilling paranormal adventures, and also author of Riding with Ghosts, Angels, and Spirits of the Dead. I'd like to welcome back a friend of the show, John Russell. How you doing, John?
John, I've called you John. Nothing wrong with me today. You can tell it's been a week. Dylan, it's great to be back, man. I always enjoy being on the show. We always have a good time. We're going to have a lot to talk about tonight.
Yeah, and I do. There's something about you, man, and I don't know. I was thinking about it before we kind of connected here today on just like you just come across as someone who's a very honest and like straightforward individual. And I love that about people. And I actually had heard an interview you done recently that got released on Darkness Radio. It's
Oh,
one of
yeah,
the
with Tim Dennis.
yeah, it's one of the podcasts that I follow, and I thought it was pretty cool that you were on there.
Right.
And just the consistency and some of the stuff you talked about is some of the same stuff that you talked about on my show. And I just I just see it kind of shines through that, the honesty that you have. So I
Right.
love that about you.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's been a big thing with me since I was a kid, actually, as far as integrity in the paranormal realm. Because even at an early age, I saw so many phonies, so many con artists, so many liars in religion, in the church, in the spiritual community, the psychic community, the paranormal community. And I observed people doing things, they didn't practice what they preached. And I saw people deliberately con people and deliberately lie to people and all of these things. And that offended me greatly, even at a young age. And my mission in life as a psychic and in the paranormal realm has been to always be completely, absolutely sterling honest and straight up with my clients and in my investigations and with the work I do. I haven't been the perfect person. I've been a jerk like everybody else is, and I've goofed up in my life plenty in spite of my gift. But I always tell people the one thing I can go to bed, lay my head on the pillow and sleep good at night. I've never been dishonest with my clients, never cheated clients, never said anything I couldn't back up, never lied about anything. So that's a record that's been important to me to be honest about. And I always, there's been a lot of people that have talked to me and said, you could have been one of these multimillionaires if you had just fudged things a little bit, like the millionaire evangelists that are just absolute phonies. And then you see well-known big name psychics that make millions of dollars, and they're mostly full of BS. And my answer to that has always been, yeah, you're right. I could have, except that I know the reality of this dimension. I've experienced now over 1,000 physical paranormal manifestations. A lot of times other people have witnessed these. We've recorded them on film, on photographs, audio, like I say, with multiple witnesses sometimes. And with my psychic gift over the years, I've been reading professionally 50 years now, and I've read for clients now in over 40 countries. And clients give me a feedback rating of 80 to 90% accuracy. So knowing the reality of this dimension, and the fact that this dimension has literally saved my life several times, quite literally, it wouldn't cross my mind to cross that dimension or to be dishonest with it or to be disingenuous with either it or my clients. I firmly believe that if I ever did, the punishment would be swift and severe from the other side, and I'm very serious. So it's never dawned on me. It's never even been a thought to even slightly be disingenuous with anybody. And as a matter of fact, there have been clients I've refused to read for. There have been clients that have paid for a reading. I've refunded their money and called them up and said, you don't need a reading right now. You need this one little bit of information. Go run with that. And then down the road, if you really need something in depth, yeah, call me back, but you don't need it right now. And my wife tells me I'm one of the worst businessmen in the world for that. It's like, but I'm like, I can't be dishonest with people. And I'm not going to give a person a reading that doesn't need a reading. I'm just not going to do it. So that's something I've adhered to for 50 years now, and haven't gotten rich, haven't even made a good living, to tell you the truth. But I've always been, my conscience has always been clear, and I've helped a lot of people by being that way. And I've also made a lot of people mad because I call the phonies out, man. I don't cut the phonies any slack, and I go after them.
Well, I think that's, what you say is important, though. You've helped a lot of people out. I think, that's, we need that in this world. And
We do. Yeah, we
yeah.
do.
So I think that's key to everything. As far as, when we last spoke, you were talking about, you were in the process of moving and doing some other things.
Yeah.
And then, talking off air, how did the move go? And, how are things since the move?
Well, the move went well, thank you. It's been a very interesting move. This retinue of spirit helpers on the other side that I affectionately called the guys, they've been with me since I was a kid, and they always go with me wherever I go. When I move, they come along with me, and we're always pretty much in constant communication, constant contact. So when I moved, of course, the guys moved with me, but this time they did something a little different, just to let me know in a very dramatic way and to provide a good story to tell people that they had moved along with me and were indeed here with us. When we were packing up to move, there were certain things in my office there that I absolutely have to do what I do. And so my wife's son, who I call my son, claim him as my son, he and I worked together on my office to pack it up and to get it ready to go. And his fiance and my wife worked together to pack up the other areas of the house, because packing up my office was pretty extensive. And there were things that had to go in the car right then. And so they were packed up and labeled and put in the car. And then there were things I could wait on for a little bit, but not too long. And so those were put in a box, and all the boxes were sealed multiple times with tape, top and bottom and all the way around, and then labeled as to what they were. And that would be John's office, must take now. So those had to be packed up and carried over pretty quick. They could be put in the garage, but they had to be where I could open them and get to them. So the interesting thing in packing up these items from my office is my son and I would sit there and we would discuss the things that we were packing up, because he had questions about certain things. What is this, and what do you use that for? And do you need this, and how do you use this? And gosh, you have to keep all of these records and all this, that, and the other, so on and so forth. So we would comment on these things, and there were things that we packed up in a certain way, and sometimes there were little like plastic boxes or something that items would go in and then go in the main box. And I was very cognizant of what was going in as we were packing. And then I would write on there with magic marker, John's office, and basically what was in there. And then these were sealed with tape. Now, once they were sealed, they were not unsealed until they were brought over and stacked in the garage. And so when we got here and I began to go through things a little bit at a time, there were things that I needed for my office. And I said, okay, guys, I said, I need you to show me in the garage what box these items are in, because I had several John's office boxes. And I was like, okay, I need this particular set of items. So I went out to the garage and I just stood there and I said, okay, guys, lead me to where such and such a thing is. And so they led me to this box that was in my wife's handwriting that said John's old shoes, kitchen items, and other things. And I was like, guys, what in the world are you doing, man? I was like, I'm asking you for these items I need for my office. I don't need my old shoes. I don't need kitchen items. And so I could almost feel the laughter from the other side. And they were like, open the box, open the box. Now the box is still sealed. None of these boxes have been opened or unsealed since I've been here. They're all still bound with tape. I had to cut them all open. So I cut this box open that says John's old shoes and blah, blah, blah. That's in my wife's handwriting. Nothing, she didn't pack up anything from my office at all. So nothing would be in a box with her handwriting or anything to do with her. And I opened this box, and there sitting on the top of this box, when I open it up at the very top, are those items that I'm looking for. Now, I put those items in a box with my son in my office, sealed it, and wrote on there in my handwriting. Those items were literally teleported from that box into this other box that was sealed with my wife's handwriting. And when I opened up the original box that I had put those in, they weren't there. They were in that, they were literally physically teleported to this other box. So I was like, wow, guys, this is pretty awesome. This is a demonstration of the power that the other side can literally physically affect things.
That is strange.
That is wild.
So now the box that you opened that was supposed to have your stuff in, was there room for them items?
Yeah. So good. After that happened, we began to find in more and more and more boxes, not just my stuff, but some of her stuff too, things that we had packed and knew we had packed in one box was no longer there and now appeared in a different box when we unsealed it and opened it. So they did it not just once, but they did it several times. So they were letting us know that, yeah, guys, we definitely came along. We're going to show you in a big way that we came along. And then since we've been in the house, of course, they've been, all my houses have always been very, very active for paranormal demonstrations because the guys are always around. But boy, here they have really outdone themselves, not only with the teleportation, but there's been all kinds of noises. There's been things moved, things open and closed, just all kinds of stuff going on all the time. So they've really accompanied us in the move in a big way. And I think one of the reasons that they've shown themselves so powerfully here is I had a little trepidation when we moved. I mean, we had lived where we were at nearly 2 decades. We built that house from scratch, and we really enjoyed our time there. And I had a little trepidation about leaving it. I really did. And I was a little uncertain about how things were going to be when I knew the guys would still be around. I knew everything would still work, but I just had a little trepidation. So it was kind of like a big, hey, we're here, welcome home. We came with you, look at this. We're, doing things in a big way. So that kind of helped me ease in and settle in and feel at home a little bit more to see such a powerful demonstration of power like that.
Now in this new space, does it feel different? I mean, is there other spirit there or anything like that?
Yeah, this feels a lot different. There is a powerful big energy here. There's a lot of new spirits here that I've met and gotten used to since we've been here. And one of the most interesting things that happened, which I hope to investigate further, I was on my fifth Coast to Coast AM appearance with George Norrie. And I jokingly call it I bat cleanup because I get the 3 to 5 a.m. Eastern time slot, right? So I usually get up at 1 or 2 o'clock and get awake and get everything set up and ready to rock and roll. And I'm in my office and I usually either have the lights out and the candle going or very dim lights going or whatever. And I always have the blinds pulled because it's 3 to 5 a.m., right? So this time I came in, got in my office here in the new house, and the guys were like, open up the blinds. And I was like, why would I open up the blinds? It's pitch black outside. What am I going to see? And they were like, open up the blinds. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I light a candle, I open up the blinds, go on the air. And during right between the first and the second hour, I believe it was, I see this movement outside. At first, I thought it was a deer in the yard. And I looked closer, and we have this in the new house, which is an old house, but new to us. And they had this fence built around the little patio outside. Now, the fence is like 7, 8 feet tall, right? And it's solid, one of those solid plastic fences. So by the fence there, which is by my office window, as I'm looking out the window, this movement catches my eye. And I then see that it's 2 distinct figures, and they're both very large, or at least 7 or 8 feet tall, very, very broad, and kind of slightly glowing. And they actually bent down and kind of looked in the window at me. And then they walked through the solid plastic fence and disappeared. And I was like, holy cow. All right. So we got a lot going on here. There's a lot of things happening here. So it's really pretty cool.
That is pretty neat. You know, you've done this for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, and I've heard you I think you said this on my show and on other interviews I've heard you mention that, like, you don't really get scared a whole lot when you're doing readings and you're
No,
talking to
never.
spirit,
No.
which is kind of neat. But maybe can you maybe share one of the stranger experiences or something that you've had that was like odd with maybe with a reading or with communication with spirit?
Um, Something that really affected me, and it didn't scare me, but it really um, really kind of raised the hair on me when I experienced it. I'll give you two indications. It was unsettling. It wasn't frightening, but it was unsettling. And one I just mentioned to my wife tonight before we went on the air here. There was an office space back in my hometown that I went into, and there was a new cabinet there, or a display case that hadn't been there before. And I didn't see what was in the case. My back was turned to it. But as I walked past it, I immediately had this sensation of literal evil. And I don't ever feel anything like that. In all my paranormal investigations and everything I've done, I've never felt anything like that. I've felt odd things and various oddities and whatever, but I've never felt this overwhelming sense of black, pure evil. And I turned around, I almost jumped around. I turned around to see what was in the display case that would be making me feel that way. And it was full of Nazi memorabilia. And I asked the guy that owned it, I said, are these reproductions? And he said, no, these are genuine artifacts. These are the real genuine artifacts from Nazi Germany. These were all actually, used by high ranking Nazi members and in the war and all of these people. And it was like, my God. And the negative, evil black energy that came off of those objects was so indescribable to me. And I don't say how anybody could stand to be around them or have them around. It was just mind blowing. And then one time when I was doing a horse barn investigation, I write about this in my second book, Knock in the Attic. There was a just a horrific sensation I got where one of the horses, going way back a long, long time ago, had been tortured and abused. And sure enough, they knew the history of the place, and they were able to confirm and validate that this horse had been abused and had been tortured by this guy so badly that it had to be put down. And I don't know if it was the energy from that or if there was some other incident there, because it was really full of a lot of physical paranormal manifestation. And there was one room in the barn there that had a closed door, and I felt led to go and open up that door. But at the same time, I went over there and I wasn't scared, but it took everything I had to put my hand on that knob and pull that door open. The energy was that overwhelming. And when I did, the cold that was in that room, Dylan, was like, oh my God, you could walk into a meat locker and it would be warmer, you know? And a lot of it had to do, I think, with what went on there. So there are things that have slightly unsettled me, but no, I've never been scared, never been frightened with all of these experiences. Overwhelmingly, all of my experiences have been positive, been good. And, like I say, the other side has literally, quite literally saved my life many times. And so overall, it's been a very positive experience for me, but there have been a few unsettling occasions, yeah.
That's interesting. Especially, you mentioned pure evil.
Yeah.
And recently there's been some conversation with some people on whether evil really does exist in the world, or is it, because based on, us having free will and just the ability to do things, perhaps there's, like, I guess, hints of evil. But I often wonder about that. Like you mentioned Nazi Germany, and
Mhm.
then also like people that maybe harm children. Like to me,
Right.
that it seems like that pure evil perhaps does exist. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I absolutely believe that it does. I mean, all you have to do is read the newspaper every day or look online and read the news and see the horrific things that people do to each other, and study history and look at the horrific things that we do. And I do believe that there is room for the concept of a spiritual influence, a negative spiritual influence, um, that either drives that or feeds on it. But I think that we're quite capable in and of ourselves of choosing evil and deciding to do evil. And one of the things that I have a big problem with, people say, well, God's taking note, God's going to get them, karma's going to get them, this, that, and the other. I don't think so, because look, there are serial killers that have never been caught. Um, there are serial killers that have been caught, they're non-repentant. There are mobsters. It's documented that there are mobsters that have hacked people up in little pieces and disposed of them and things like that. And they live to ripe old ages and good health with a ton of money and cars and houses and young women. And so there's no karma, there's no punishment,
That's
there's no anything there
Yeah,
forthcoming.
that's very true. But
Yeah.
do you think perhaps in the life review though they may experience what they've done to others?
I'm sure that there may be a process like that, but I don't know if there's any kind of, you would hope that on the other side there would be some type of punishment or
Yeah,
review or constraint or something.
right.
But we don't know. We don't know for a certainty that that's the
That's true.
case.
We don't
So
know. My
we
hopes would
don't
be
know,
that
and to pin our hopes on the pie in the sky and the by and by. Well, they may live like a devil here and get away with it, but over
right.
there they're going to get punished. Well, we don't know. We don't
My
know exactly how things go on over there. So
my hopes would be that they would though. Just I mean, like you said, we don't really know, but I mean, I would think that that would help maybe to help the soul to grow or evolve so that maybe if they did
we would hope
incarnate
so.
again,
Yeah, we would hope
they
so.
don't do that again in another lifetime,
We
or
would
something
hope,
like that.
and one of the things that I thought about when I did this paranormal investigation, and I write about that in my first book, when I went to one of the Civil War battlefields and investigated that. And it was amazing to me. I was going to go there and expect to find this energy of horror and terror and maybe repentance and sadness and all of this type of thing. And instead, it was like, even down to the horses, to the animals, the energy that was there was like everybody was, I won't say gleeful, but almost. It was like there was no cowardice. There was no, it was like, yeah, let's get this fight on and let's dispatch as much of the enemy as we can. And it was like, my God, there was no hesitation there. There was no lack of bravery, no cowardice, no remorse,
That's
no.
almost like pure hate almost in a
Yeah,
sense,
it's
right?
just like, let's do this, let's get this done. And the thought that occurred to me was, with so many people dying in such a focused and determined manner, then I wondered, well, when you go to the other side, are you willing to continue the fight there, or do you get some clarity when you go over? Or if I was your enemy here, am I still your enemy there when you get there? It's like it's just mind-boggling to think of these things and to try and figure out, what happens during that transition process. And like you say, you hope to God that there is some type of transition process there where things are kind of like, hey, let's look at what's going on here, what's happened, and give you an opportunity to affect a change or to feel differently or do something differently. You hope that that's the case. But what worries me is the number of people that are here on earth that are given that opportunity and squander it again and again and again, or take advantage of it and continue their evil ways. And it makes you wonder.
Yeah, that's interesting. Um, how important is it um for people to, perhaps listen to that inner voice, is it, I mean, is it something, I mean, I don't know what it is. It maybe your higher self, or maybe it's spirit guide, or
Mhm.
things of that nature, that just, I don't know if everybody has it though. When we're talking pure evil and people that, I don't know if they have the same kind of dialogue, inner dialogue that, the
Yeah.
average person does.
I think they may have it, but they squelch it. They tune it out somehow. Because I do believe that people can deaden their consciences, you know, to the point that it just doesn't bother them anymore. And then, some psychiatrists, psychologists tell us that there are some people that never had a conscience to begin with. They're lacking that. And, for all of us, it's crucial that we listen to that inner voice, that we listen to that guidance, because that can literally help save our lives, like it has me many times. And it can guide us away from danger and away from problems. And you talk to a lot of people that have gotten into situations, and they're like, I had the feeling I shouldn't have stopped at that store, or I shouldn't have turned down that street, or I should have stayed home instead of going out, or whatever. And so that's that voice that we need to listen to, that will help to insulate us against evil in this world.
Yeah, that's valid. That's valid. Off air, you were talking about a haunted doll.
Oh yeah. My wife and I had seen a documentary on TV that featured haunted dolls. We looked at each other and said, "Oh, we need a haunted doll. We gotta get a haunted doll." So we said, well, "Where are we going to look?" We said, "Well, let's look on eBay." So if you go to eBay and look for the category of haunted dolls, there's a ton of them. And we saw one that we liked. The lady said that sometimes the doll would move on its own, or do all these types of things. We were like, "Yeah, yeah, that's for us." So we buy the haunted doll, and we get her. We get delivery, and we can tell that she does indeed have a spirit in her. That there is a literally a spirit there. And there were times that she would move a little bit on her own, do things like that, various things. But the main thing was we felt this literal spirit living in her, and this force there. And so we were very kind to that spirit. And, I'd play music. I had the doll in my office, and I'd play music for her, and things like that. Say, "Hey, this is for you. Let's listen to some music." And we would talk to her kindly, and give her little offerings of things and this, that, and the other. So one night, quite a while after we had had the doll, one night I had this lucid dream, and the doll came to me in the dream and said, "You have been so kind to me, and you have helped me so much, and you basically kind of set me free. And I'm going to go now, but thank you for being so kind to me and taking me into your home." And then she vanished in this column of fire and disappeared. And the very next day, I got up and I got an email from the woman that had sold the doll to me. And she said, "Are you okay? And is your house okay? Because last night I had a dream that the doll went up in flames. And I wanted to make sure, like, your house hadn't burned down or something or whatever." And so I was like, so the woman that sold us the doll went to her and also showed her that she had left in the exact same way, in the exact same dream, except that she didn't give the woman the message that she gave me. And so I told the woman, I said, "No," I said, "everything's okay." And I told her what had happened. And after that, you could tell that there was absolutely no spiritual attachment, no entity, no energy at all in the doll, and that the
Wow.
spirit had indeed left.
So
So
it
that was
act
a really neat experience. Yeah.
it actually influenced both of you guys in the dream state.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. Now,
Actually came to me in the dream, and told me, "I'm leaving now. I'm going now. Thank you for being so kind to me." And then going up in flames. And the exact same thing. She had the woman that sold me the doll had the exact same vision of the doll going up in flames.
wow.
And oh, one other thing I forgot to tell you while we were off air, we also got this is when we were living in upstate New York, and we went to this department store, and they had this whole huge bin and shelves of various stuffed animals like penguins and this, that, and the other, and they had pigs. And this one pig I looked at, and they had the little hard black plastic eyes. And this one pig I looked at, and you could tell that there was something alive in those eyes looking out. And I told my wife, I said, "Look at that pig, look at that pig, look at its eyes." And she said, "Oh my God, it's like it's alive." And I said, "I know, we gotta have it. We gotta have it." So we went over there and I got it, and appropriately named it Pig Pig. And so we took it home, and we discovered very quickly that indeed it was alive. We would put it in a certain position in the bedroom, come back, and it would be in a different position. Things would manifest around it. One night we clearly heard it emit sound, say something, we couldn't tell what it was, but it emitted a sound. And so we bought it little clothes, and we dressed it up, and we took it on road trips and things, and left the TV on for it when we were gone. And we still have Pig Pig, and Pig Pig is still very much haunted, still very much has a spirit in him. And we still do little things for him, and he will still, like, he'll still move or make sounds or this and the other, or whatever. So yeah.
What do you make of that? Is it like a human uh soul
I
that's
think it's more or
attached,
less
or
like maybe like a nature spirit type thing, or
ah,
something like that, that makes the attachment to something or lives in something. It seems to me not to be any human entity, but more
yeah,
like a, like a nature spirit type thing or something like that.
that
With
is
the
so
haunted doll, it
strange.
almost felt like a little girl energy, but not quite. And I think there are, in these energies like nature spirits and various other genres of spirits, there may be, like, female and male and whatever type entities there that you encounter. So there could be like a small child, small girl like spirit of whatever type that's really not human, maybe, but maybe is something else. So, I've encountered fairies, I've encountered nature spirits, I've encountered all manner of bizarre things that I poo-pooed until I encountered them in the flesh. And then it was like, oh, wow, these things are real, man. So there's so much out there that we just don't know, and that we're still exploring, we're still trying to learn. And, people write all these authoritative books on things, and they don't know, it's just, there's, until you physically experience it and then begin to explore it and get that direct experience, that's when you really begin to learn. And it's, I don't think it occurs the way that a lot of these people say that it does or think that it does. And so, but it's real, it's out there.
That's yeah, it's fascinating. That's something that like inanimate objects and things like that, it fascinates me, but also like certain locations seem to have more activity than others. And
Yeah.
what do you make of that? Is it just based on perhaps like a traumatic event happening and the energies like instilled in the area, or what is that?
Well, sometimes it is. And sometimes, like, I came up with a theory one time. I think we may have discussed this before. I had this, well, I didn't come up with a theory. It was actually kind of an epiphany given to me. And I was like, oh my God, yeah. I was like, the thought that was given to me from the other side was, what if some hauntings are nothing but nostalgia? You know, a guy had a farm, and he loved the farm, and he loved to till the land, and he loved the animals, and he loved the smell of the soil, and he loved the crops, and everything else. And then he died. And on the other side, maybe 5, 10, 15 years later, on the other side, he goes, wonder what the old farm looks like. Wonder if anybody's still working it as a farm, or what did they turn it into, or whatever. And so he goes back to see, and maybe the veil's real thin at that moment, and somebody sees him, oh my God, a ghost. And, and so then they try and ascribe all kinds of meanings to that haunting. And maybe it's nothing more than the guy just coming back out of nostalgia to see what's happening at the old home place. So I think a lot of these hauntings, we may try and ascribe all these special meanings to, and there may not be any special meaning. It may just be maybe a case of nostalgia, or maybe something that's really pretty ordinary. But I had somebody ask me the other day, they said, well, how can you say that every place on the planet's haunted? What about a brand new house? Well, read this book called The Practice of the Wild. And in this book, the guy talks about every place on the planet that we think is totally desolate and has never seen human contact has usually been inhabited at some time in history. And what we don't realize, and what I only discovered when I started doing paranormal investigations, like out in forests and woods and things like that, where at one time there had been some habitation, what we don't realize, what I didn't realize, was how quickly nature obliterates everything and takes everything back over. And I mean, it happens really, really quickly. And it happens to the point that you can't even recognize that there were houses there or plantations there or whatever. I mean, nature will just absolve everything like just, super, super quickly absorb it into itself again. Um, so I think that, what we have to realize in looking at these places, including new places, well, it's new to you, but who lived there or camped there or maybe built a cabin there hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago or whatever. So, there's a place here in Florida called Matanzas Inlet, and it's right on the beach, and there's sand, and there's a little inlet, and then the ocean's on the other side, and people are out there laying in the sun, and they're kite surfing, and they're fishing, and all this. Matanzas means slaughter, and on that spot, there were all these troops that were slaughtered and killed right there on that very spot. And here we are now, we're laying there in the sun and laying in the sand, and there's a restaurant there and all this. And on that spot, all these people were killed. Multiple troops were slaughtered there, not in a battle or a skirmish or anything. They were just captured, rounded up, and just slaughtered there, just killed there. And so all of these places on this earth have these energies, have these places where people have been, all these things have happened. And so, yes, every place is haunted, either by the people that were there, the people that were there a long time ago, or by nature spirits, various other entities that are inhabit a place or around a certain place. And then what really amazes me is the older I get, the more I find out that nearly any place you go, besides having a neat paranormal or psychic history, also has a phenomenal physical history. We have this deal here now called Spookala, where they're going to have all these people come and like the guy that was playing Michael Myers in the latest Halloween and all that, he's going to be here in costume for photo ops and all this good stuff. So I'm all excited about that. Hope to go. But one of the neat things was they have one of the screen used Jeepers Creepers trucks that the guy owns and is going to be here. And I've just by happenstance found out online this guy that goes around, does all these interview things. And lo and behold, he goes and interviews the guy that has the Jeepers Creepers truck. Well, in the process where this guy lives, I believe it's in North Carolina, the best I remember. But anyways, there's the guy that's doing the interviews used to play in a band, and he goes to this little rundown rinky-dink bar there that used to hold a bunch of concerts and things, and his band actually played there. But besides that, this bar hosted like REM and all these famous punk bands and things,
Oh
and
wow.
like all the graffiti and things are from them there. Out in the middle of North Carolina, here's all these super famous bands that played this place. And then in the basement, I believe it's of the same bar, in the basement was Al Capone hung out there, and all these other famous people. It's like, and I found out over in Gainesville here in Florida at one of the universities, Janis Joplin performed there. And it's like, so all these little dinky rundown places you go, all these famous people have been there. And it's just incredible to me the history that places have physically apart from the psychic and the paranormal influence. So there's so much to learn, so much to know, but every place on this planet that we think has been desolate or deserted or hadn't been inhabited probably has. And if not by humans, at least by these nature spirits, various other spirits, so on and so forth. So yeah, you clear land, you build a brand new house, it's still going to be haunted. There's still going to be spirits there, even if there weren't human spirits there, there's going to be nature spirits there and things. And then there's always this process of attraction where spirits on the other side and maybe deceased people on the other side are attracted to a person or a location for whatever reason. So yeah, every place is haunted.
What do you make of nature spirits? Are they similar like a human soul? Are they do they have like similar goals, or are they on a whole different?
They're on a whole different level.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily, they understand from a human perspective, from our perspective. So they understand us, they know us, they know what we're talking about, they get what our emotions and everything are about, but they're not that way. It's not to say that they don't have any emotion, and certainly they have their own thoughts and everything. They're capable of intelligent thought and so on and so forth, but they're not human, so they don't come at things from a human perspective or a human motivation. And they view things in a different way because some of their goals and aims and things, their objectives are different from ours, or maybe a little slightly altered from ours. And some of these spirits seem to be able to be pissed off pretty easily. And some seem to have some latitude, some leeway, pretty good sense of humor. Some seem to be kind of pranksterish. Some kind of seem to be standoffish. Some don't want to have nothing to do with you. And then others seem to be very friendly or inquisitive or inquiring toward you. So there's a wide range of intelligences and energies that I've encountered there. I've not encountered anything that I would perceive as malevolent or dangerous or anything like that. But then when I go into paranormal investigations or I encounter spirits or whatever, I'm always extremely respectful. I never curse at them and demand they show themselves or any of that kind of nonsense. And I don't tread in places where I feel like that I'm all of a sudden not welcome or that they don't want me there for whatever reason. So I always go into places in a paranormal investigation, or when I encounter a spirit, even in my own home, I always encounter that with respect, with treating them with dignity, with kindness, with courtesy, and approaching it that way. And like I say, not all of these are. It's not to say that they can't understand us, we can't understand them, but look, my little dog understands me, and I understand him. It's got to the point I have to spell things in front of him to keep him from getting too excited about something like going for a ride or whatever. And now it's got to the point that he's learned to spell. When I spell something, he knows exactly what I'm spelling. And so, look, there's intelligence there. There's emotion there. There's love. There's excitement. There's fear. There's hatred for other dogs. He absolutely hates other dogs, but he's not human. But he understands, he has emotions, he has thought, he
Right.
has goals and objectives. They're not human, but they're real. And they come from a place of emotion and intelligence and thought. And so I understand him, he understands me, but there are things that he does, like I don't go sniff somebody's butt when I meet him to figure them out, and he does, So there are these differences still. And so that's a good analogy, I think, of nature spirits, is that there are some of these differences there in the way that they act and interact. But everything and everybody that I know of will respond to respect.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think like some of these ghost shows and what you see, it drives me crazy when they
Oh, it's
come in
horrible.
and they come in and they
Horrible.
try to like, they just say things to instigate or to try to, piss spirit off or
Right.
whatever. And I
And then
just
they scream and run like little girls when
yeah.
they do.
And I feel like it's just so disrespectful,
It is. It's
you're going
extremely
into their area.
disrespectful.
Yeah.
And I think that, I have experienced the dramatic dynamics of spiritual energy from the other side as to how they can affect the physical realm. And so they could do you real harm physically if they wanted to. And to me, it's always amazing that these people challenge the spirits and don't suffer some kind of consequence, because I've seen firsthand physically what these beings from the other side can do. And you don't even have to see them to be physically influenced by them or for them to influence the physical realm.
Now, talking about nature spirits, I kind of want to maybe segue into this. There's been a lot of talk, and I just kind of want to get your take on it. I don't even know if you've really done much research on it or anything like that, but maybe you can, offer up some thought or some advice on it. But here lately in the news, there's a lot of talk of like transhumanism, the new Cyberlink thing that they're working on, or even maybe some of the medications that kind of, I don't want to go too deep into that, but that potentially alter our DNA and stuff
Yeah.
like that. What is that harmful as a spirit, or is it just more on a human level, or is it possible that that could affect you spiritually?
I think that we have to realize that nearly everything we do has a consequence to ourselves, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, just within ourselves. And then also has a consequence on the other side. And an example of that I'll give you: when we had the very first big economic crash where the wheels came off, um, there was I used to go out and find coins, like just appear out of the blue. Like I would get out of the car, look down on the ground around me, nothing would be there. I'd go in the store, come back out. There would be 3 coins in a pyramid shape, triangle shape, touching each other there by my car door when I got in, and things like that. And I would find those everywhere. And sometimes there would be in a port, they would just appear out of thin air and fall to the ground. And that was witnessed by other people sometimes. So all of these paranormal things that were happening when we had that big economic crash, I stopped finding coins at all for a long time. There were several other manifestations from the other side that kind of pulled back or kind of receded or kind of ceased temporarily. And the message I got from that was that there is a connection and an interaction between our realms, so that when we do something incredibly stupid like that, it literally sends out these ripples into the psychic and the paranormal atmosphere, and literally also affects the other side. And it not only has, um, let's call it a physical effect there, but I think like an emotional and an intellectual effect there, where the beings on the other side, human and non-human, are like, good God, what are you doing? And that energy comes over there, and they feel that, and they have to interact with that, and they have to figure out, okay, how do we control that on this side? What can we do to maybe help the people over there in this physical realm get back on track? And of course, we're as bound and determined as we can to keep things screwed up. It's like nobody went to jail. Everybody got huge bonuses. It was business as usual. The Fed bailed out everybody to the tune of billions of dollars, and there was no accounting for where that went. So the balloon crashed. We patched it up with Band-Aids, filled it up with the same hot air, and sent it up again. And we didn't change who we were as a people, or what we did, or our actions. And as a result, we just keep experiencing the same thing over and over again from that. And so I believe that all of our actions here, the things we watch, the things we read, the things we participate in, have an effect on our bodies, have an effect on our spirits, our minds, our souls. I tell people, I say, look, look, it's okay to go watch horror movies or this, that, and the other if they don't bother you or whatever, but be very conscious of what you're putting into your mind, what you're viewing, what you're thinking about, what you're dwelling on, the kind of people you hang out with. And, there's people that you may like them, but they do nothing but bring you down. They don't contribute anything to your life. They suck all of your energy. Sometimes they take your resources. They'll take your money if you let them. And then they're never there for you as a friend. If you're down and out, need something, need some help, they're not there. They're just looking for the next good time. And so we have to look at it in a practical way. And it's not a sin judgment or a this judgment or that judgment. It's just honest uh, living, where we have to realize that these things have a spiritual impact, and that they do affect us on many dimensions, on many realms, and then also that we affect the other side with these things.
I think that's a valid point, and you just made me think that perhaps much like a good diet and what we feed our bodies, you kind of need to feed your mental and your spiritual with
You do, yeah,
good wholesome
absolutely,
stuff.
absolutely.
That's interesting. What is what is your take on the last 2 or 3 years in the state of the world, as far as maybe collectively, um, kind of this whole process? Is it, you think that obviously, what you've just said, it's obviously changed, maybe perhaps spiritually, or changed people spiritually, or
Yeah,
um, yeah.
I think it has, and I think we're in some dire times right now, Dylan. I mean, it's you know there are conspiracies out there, and you have to understand the conspiracy. I mean, you have to look at it, if you look at it in an intellectual way and not the knee-jerk wingnut way, you can determine that, yeah, there are things going on in this world that are engineered. And you look at the stock market is engineered. And I mean, you say, oh, John, come on. Well, let's go back and look at the history of the Hunt brothers, for example, when they invoked their own machinations to corner the silver market. And all you got to do is go back and look at history and say, okay, that was engineered, man. That was, you know. And so there are times in our history where the stock market is still engineered. Business is engineered. A lot of religion, science, everything else is engineered toward a particular goal or toward a particular social construct or whatever. I remember watching, if people will go and get Jamie Johnson, he's the son of the elder Johnson and Johnson Pharmaceuticals, that Johnson. Go and look online and get, Jamie Johnson did 2 documentaries. And his whole concept in doing these documentaries was, hey, Dad, I walk down the street and there's a guy living in a cardboard box, but we can fire up the Learjet and go to Paris and eat breakfast if we want to. How come? Why this big disparity? And so he pissed off a lot of people making this documentary because the rich don't like to be questioned. And the rich, some of them apparently have a lot of guilt about the mass of money that they have and the fact that there's this disparity and people starving in the streets. And I remember one of the things that stuck with me from his documentary, and this goes back to like the conspiracy type thing, and one of the things that stuck with me in this documentary was the ultra wealthy, like the Johnsons and all these other people. This guy holds this seminar once a year, and all the ultra wealthy go there. And this guy's seminar is, here's how to keep your wealth, to keep the government from touching it, to keep charities from getting a hold of it, to keep anybody from getting a hold of it, how to pass it directly to your family without problem and have them increase it and gain more and more and more. And everybody keeps their hands off of it. It's just yours, and it's more and more and more. And this guy does this seminar for the ultra wealthy every year to teach them this. And it's like, my God, you know, so yeah, there are, you know, powerful, wealthy people with special interest out there and special things. And that's not a diatribe against wealthy people or against people with money or anything else. There's people with money that do a lot of good. There's people with money that don't. I mean, if you're ultra wealthy and you give $20 million to a university to build a library with your name on it, you haven't done a darn thing. Now, you could take that $20 million, and back in West Texas, where I grew up, there were people every year that would die during the summer from the heat. So if you've got $20 million, you could go to every Lowe's, every Sam's Club, every Home Depot, every Walmart, and buy up all the window air conditioners. And you could go and pay for them to be installed in all these old people's homes. And you could pay their electric bills for 10 years so they could afford to run the darn things. And you could say, okay, during this summer, when it's 108 outside and you would die because you're old from the heat, now you can go and get in your bedroom, turn this thing on, close the door, and sleep in comfort, sleep cool, and live and be okay. And it would cost you way less than that 20 million that you endow the university with, put your name on, doesn't do a darn thing, you know. So we have to realize that there's a lot that goes on out there that does, you know, go toward these particular machinations and all this type of thing. And that there are these organizations and people that try and perpetuate that and keep that going. And I think that we have to look at, in the midst of all of this, how totally ineffective that the church religion has become, that spirituality has become. And all of this, like in all of these things happening, and I've talked about this with a lot of my friends, a lot of other podcast hosts and everything, and we've all agreed, where's the church? You don't hear the church coming out and saying anything or doing anything. Where's the spiritual realm? Where's the people in the psychic and the paranormal spiritual realm coming out and saying, hey, man, you know? And my big issue with people has been trying to get them to realize this stuff is real, man. And we can make contact with a spiritual power that can change us, that can change others, that can affect and change this physical realm that we live in for the better. And that's the only hope that we have right now of fighting against the physicality of everything that's going on, because money and power will out. You know, I get so tickled when I see all these people go, boy, heads are going to roll, people are going to go to jail. They've been saying that for a decade or more.
Yeah.
Nobody's gone to jail.
Yeah.
Nobody's heads have rolled. Nobody's gotten fired. Everybody's just gotten richer and richer and richer. That's all that's happened. And money and power will out. And the only way that you fight that, if you're like you and me, we don't have money, we don't have power, but we can connect with spiritual power that's bigger and larger than all of that. Now, one guy like me, I've got a voice and I can use it and I can make a little bit of difference. But if we combine a whole bunch of people like me with a focus towards the same end, and we utilize spiritual power to focus on that change, that's when we begin to make a difference.
That's very valid. And I think you're onto something there with, the people with the most money, kind of make all the decisions. And that's what scares the hell out of me when, we start talking about like these conflicts overseas and things like that. Cause I know there's a lot of money to be made in war.
Oh,
and,
absolutely.
Things like that. And there's a lot of people
war has always been a big money maker.
Yeah.
And I'm as scared as you are, because it's like we have no voice in the decisions that are being made. The leaders make these decisions and they make them not for the good of other countries and not for the good of the quote unquote common man at large, but for their pocketbook. That's the reason they make those decisions, is for how am I going to improve my wealth and my status and my standing by doing this. And I mean, like, Putin, I've told people, I said, look, I know the mind of Putin. Psychically, I know the mind of Putin. And I'm not excusing him. I'm not excusing Russia. I'm not excusing the invasion. I'm not making excuses for any of that. I have a dear friend of mine that's Ukrainian, born and raised there, and is suffering through the effects of the war there. And just breaks my heart, because he's like family to me. But I understand the mind of Putin. Putin lives, breathes, loves, dies for, would cut his heart out and lay it down for Mother Russia. And that's his motivation, apart from money, which is included. But his motivation in this whole thing has been that he feels like he has been personally disrespected, and he has. And he feels like Russia has been disrespected, and it has. And you think back during the Reagan era when he didn't know the mic was alive, and he's like, I'm pushing the button and there goes Russia, And if you're the president of Russia, or if you're in Russia, you take offense to that, And I think rightfully so. We wouldn't like it if the same thing were directed toward the US. So he has these slights, real and perceived, and he has this desire for Mother Russia to rebuild and to survive and to be a great motherland once again and all that. So that's a lot of his motivation going in, and we overlook that, And I think in our diplomacy and in other things we do, we don't take that into account. We don't take that into consideration. And I think that goes back to, well, what can we get out of this? Not we as a country, not we as a people, but the shot callers. What can we get out of this? How can we manipulate this war?
Exactly.
So that, we come out of it looking good. And my buddy that lives there in Ukraine, he said, look, man, he said, when I forget the name of the treaty, but there was a treaty and Ukraine gave up all its nuclear weapons. And in that treaty, the US promised to take care of Ukraine, and Russia promised to take care of Ukraine if they would disarm, and they did. And now what? Russia invades Ukraine. The US is not helping Ukraine. Nobody's helping Ukraine. It stands by itself. And the country's in ruins, And I told my buddy, I said, psychically, I feel like if Ukraine resists Russia and pushes Russia out, Ukraine falls. If it doesn't and it's overcome by Russia, Ukraine falls. Either way, Ukraine falls. And he said, yeah, you're right, because if Russia overtakes us, obviously we fall. And he said, if we push them out, we're falling because nobody's helping us. And the country's in ruins now. He sends me things from there, from the horse's mouth. He's there, he lives there. So he sends me news and videos and photographs of things there. And there are like towns that are just totally, completely destroyed. There are dead people littering the roadsides. And there are people going out and digging holes in the dirt by the roadside and burying the dead there on the streets, And so what are we doing? Well, we're figuring out how much military thing we can get out of this, how much we can sell this, how much we can do that. And it's just like, man, the humanity has gone out of things. The spiritual context has gone out of things. People pay lip service to it, but they don't do it. And we have to make that connection with the other side, and it's there. But we have to willingly make that, and we have to subjugate our egos and our desires and sometimes our finances to make that connection and do something for the common good of humanity. And the difficulty that gets in the way, I go back to when I was a kid, and I write about this in A Knock in the Attic. When I was a kid, we had a circle, prayer group, whatever you want to call it, in our home. And it started out with people that would come in. Eckankar was popular at the time. Inner Peace Movement was popular at the time. A lot of other teachings. And they taught various specific spiritual techniques. But what we did in that group was, okay, if you come in and you're a Christian, you want to pray a biblical prayer for someone, you do that. If you use an Eckankar technique, you do that. If you use a technique from Inner Peace Movement, great. If you use some other technique, great. But don't force it on the rest of the group. Don't say that we all have to practice that. Everybody come in, and let's say we have a goal of healing John Doe. Well, everybody take your technique that you feel comfortable using, but we're going to focus all of that energy toward healing John Doe. And you use this technique, that's fine. You use this technique, that's fine. But we're all using our techniques together toward a common goal. And they got really great, marvelous results until the egos got in the way. And it was like, well, I think we should host this at my house next week. Why can't I lead a session? Why can't it be at my house? Well, I just read this new book, and this guy has all these techniques. I think we should try this technique, and I think we should do that as a group. Let's do this. And then it began to splinter apart, became ineffectual, eventually broke up. So that's the problem that we have now is, let's don't be this kind of psychic or this kind of religion or this kind of spiritual or this kind of paranormal or this kind of that. Let's just all get together and focus on a common goal, realizing that the spiritual power is there, that it's real. We can connect with it and use it to help things and change things for the better in the spiritual realm in whatever way we want to, but let's come together in a commonality to do that.
Bring your individuality into a commonality in order to achieve a goal.
To affect some change, yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem, though, with humanity. We just don't seem to be able to get on the same page when it comes.
The ego is the problem. And we're dogmatic. We're so dogmatic. I was asked one time to be on a pagan radio network as a guest, and they were talking to me pre-interview and talking about me being on the show, and they were like, are you a pagan? And I said, well, I hold with some pagan philosophies like I hold with some other philosophies, and I've had all these paranormal experiences, and my clients give me all this wonderful feedback about my accuracy and blah 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 blah. Yes, but are you a pagan? And even though I had all these concrete spiritual experiences and this worldwide clientele and these verifiable paranormal things I had done, I wasn't a quote unquote pagan by dogma, by religion, by tradition. So they wouldn't have me on because I wasn't a pagan. So even in the paranormal community, we have these dogmas and these traditions and these rituals that we adhere to. And if somebody falls outside that realm, well, then they're not one of us. And that's where one of our biggest mistakes is that we have all this separation. And then we have, like, I just read the other day in the comments on one of the podcasts I was on, it was like, well, I believe in UFOs, but I'm not sure that I can believe in psychics. Or people will believe in psychics, they don't believe in UFOs, or they believe in UFOs and psychics, but they don't believe in healing, or they believe in this and that, but they don't believe in this. It's like, you got to put all these divisions aside, and you got to realize all these manifestations come under one umbrella. It's our divisions and our labels and designations that we give them. That's man-made. That's us, you know. And once we can get past all of that, maybe we'll make some progress. But right now, it really disturbs me. I see a lot of divisiveness out there, and there's a lot of hostility out there. You know, if you don't believe this way, then the hell with you. And if you believe that way, something's wrong with you. And why can't you believe this way? And why can't you do this? And people will demand proofs of things that if you give them some reasonable proofs, they'll ignore it and say, no, that doesn't exist. That doesn't
Yeah,
happen.
you can definitely see that in even in science and even in our education system. A lot
Yeah,
of, I mean, there's pockets of different schools of thought and things, but it's just a lot of times it's so close-minded in
it
some
is.
instances. It's
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it frustrates me because I feel like if, like you said, if we could set all that aside as a humanity, we could progress in
We could do
such.
something. Yeah,
Yeah,
we could
yeah,
really do something.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, John, it's been a great discussion, man. I don't want to take any more of your time.
Oh, that's okay.
Where can the listeners you know, pick up your books and check you out and get a hold of you if they want to do a reading? You're still doing readings, right?
Absolutely. And always taking on new clients. If somebody wants a reading, they can check me out at johnrussell.net. And the full information's there to schedule a reading. Also on my page, by my portrait there, my photograph of myself on the page. On either side is the copy of the book covers. They can click on that. It'll take them to Amazon. They can buy the books there. The books are available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, just about everywhere online. And they can find out all the information they need at johnrussell.net.
Excellent, John. Hey, thanks for being on the show.
Dylan, I appreciate it. It's always a blast, and we'll do it again, man.
Yes,
Thanks.
sir. Absolutely.